Hi, I'm Lloyd Anderson, and today I'll be reading you a chapter from my upcoming novel, Titanic Again. I just wrapped up the first draft a couple weeks ago at 80,000 words, and now I'm hard at work on the revision. This is a Titanic time loop novel. The hero, a carpenter on second class, if he dies or falls asleep, he returns to the moment of the scraping of the iceberg at 11:40 p.m. on April 14th, 1912. So he has lived this sinking over and over and over again. The point that I'm going to read is from Loop 39. So it's the 39th sinking of Titanic, and he has escaped on the Carpathia, the rescue ship. He keeps trying to make it to New York, because if he can stay awake for the journey, he can actually touch shore, and that's what he thinks will get him out of the time loop. He needs to touch shore. So he's been awake for 3 days. He used a little bit of cocaine for the last day to get from that last night when he always collapsed right around Thursday morning after this week-long journey. So he is on his last breath. He is completely collapsed. Any chemical strength he had from that cocaine is completely out. He had to dose it out very carefully. So he finally gets to the unloading of the Carpathia, Pier 54 in New York. It is evening of Thursday after the ship sunk early Monday morning, and he has been awake for 3 solid days. And here he is basically arriving at the city and realizing this isn't going to work. No matter what I do, I'm going to go back to the Titanic. So he's very disassociated right now. So it's a bit more dreamy prose here. He's in a very sleep-deprived state of mind. And this is him going down the gangway into New York City. It's called the Unreal City. The moment I set foot on land, I already knew that I had failed. I knew in a heart-dropping moment that this threshold was nothing special. Just a box to cross off in my mind, a long dead-end tunnel I had followed all the way to its end, and there would be nothing here for me. Nothing but collapse and silence. From this point on, I would just be going through the motions. The crowd noise was disorienting. I didn't see faces anymore. I only saw sources of voices, flashes of movement, the occasional wardrobe choice. These weren't people. They were just a mass of awareness, a collective mind playing out the same play for the millionth time. I followed the gangway down, staggering a little. Others were coming down with me. I guess they were the other second-class passengers, but all I saw were clothes and movement. I had to hold my arm up to block the flashing powder of the cameras. In my delirium, it looked to me as if the crowd gathered there on Pier 54 were buried in flashing flames, and the heat was their voices. The only words I could pick out were names, the same ones shouted over and over. Many of those names would be shouted all night, even after the Carpathia had unloaded the last of its 700 or so Titanic survivors. 700 out of 2,200. I imagined that the Grim Reaper was getting off with us, the great list keeper. He would answer to many of those names shouted from the crowd. Augustus! Yes, he is here. Lillian Goodwin! Yes, she is with us all. Anders! Yes, him also. Archibald, please! No worries, madam, he is accounted for. Edith, Helen, Harry, George, all here, all present, they send their love. Not my Alfred, please not my Alfred. Alfred too, my darling, you shall see him in time. You shall all be reunited before long. You may weep, but do not worry. All will be corrected in time. I sensed my face being searched again and again as I shuffled into the crowd. So I did the proper thing and held my face high. I tried to keep my eyes open. I showed them my hollow blue eyes and black beard and the particular shape of my cheeks and nose. I sensed I still had a little of the chemical strength running through me, and somehow I was able to fall into the rhythm of putting one foot in front of the other and navigating through the gaps in the crowd. I said nothing. My throat was too sore for any niceties. Michael! A woman in a brown coat and blue house dress ran up to me. I looked at her. All I saw were her eyes, since they were so shiny with tears. But I had never seen those eyes in my life. She embraced me tightly, then pulled back to look at me in the face. The smile dropped. You're not Michael, she said. My name is... Yes, I said lamely, pushing her off. But no, I'm sorry. She slapped me across the face, then ran off toward the gangway. The pain took me several seconds to register, and I lifted my hand to the burning place on my frozen cheek. I didn't understand, but I knew I had to get out of this crowd as fast as possible. These people were mad, either mad with grief or mad with interest. They wanted to know everything. They wanted to know about the band and the lifeboats and the iceberg and the captain. They wanted to know if this person had lived or that person had died. They were like ants feeding on a sandwich. thrown on the ground. I became ruder then. I shoved my way to the edge of the crowd. I kept my head low. When journalists blocked my path, I lied and told them I wasn't a survivor. If they're pressed, I called them parasites. One man who kept following me reached out to grab my shoulder, clenching down on it like a claw, and I spun around and shoved him to the ground. "Leave me alone, you fucking ghoul," I shouted in a voice louder than I knew I had. My heart was trip-hammering again. I felt the last of that chemical strength rushing through my bloodstream. They left me alone after that, and I escaped the crowd. The rain fell steadily that whole walk. Not a storm, not a downpour. There wasn't even a breath of wind. It just came down on the old city like a trillion little faucets in the sky. My hair stuck to my face and my boots were soaked through. I didn't notice the rain at first. What I noticed were the streets and the coldness. But the rain dragged me down as I wandered through the streets of western Manhattan, not knowing where I wanted to go. All I knew was I wanted to get away from the water, from the sea, from the port. The water was death. But no matter how far I traveled inland, the water followed me. My clothes got heavier. Soon the weight would topple me over and I wouldn't be able to get up. Faces shuffled past me. No one gave me a second glance. I was just another drunk. The city became older and tighter as I drifted east and south. More steam from the grates, more wagons splashing through the water, more awareness flashing this way and that. The buildings seemed to stretch up taller than I remembered, and when the elevated train roared past overhead, I felt the earth rumble beneath me. It would come soon, my own train. Approaching lower Broadway, I saw a newspaper floating in a puddle. Something about it caught my eye, the word Carpathia. I turned my head so my eyes were straight with the words. The headline read, "Carpathia due tonight, Titanic survivors listed." It was already old news. And yet I knew it would all happen again. The ship would keep arriving until the end of eternity. It would always be on its way. It would always be at port. It would always be on that gangway among the shouts and flashes and whistles, and I would always be here walking onward, walking toward that great tower. The tower was a church, a spire taller than the surrounding buildings, a gap in the city. It was St. Paul's, I knew. As I neared it in the rain, I saw a fence. Beyond the fence was a sleeping ward for the dead, crooked tombstones amid barely blooming trees. The gate was open. My shuffling footsteps took me through it. In Ireland, you can wander into a church any time of day. They were always open, even if you just needed to get out of the rain, even if you just needed to lie down on a pew in a warm place. I thought of how warm it would be inside. My vision darkening, my legs nearing mutiny. I climbed up the steps to the door under the eave illuminated by a hanging lantern. The wooden door was smaller than I thought. Not a great door at all, a simple threshold. I smiled and tried the handle. It was locked. I tried it again, then I knocked. For minutes no one came. More minutes passed. I looked to the windows and saw it all dark inside. I knocked louder. No one came. The sons of bitches had closed the place. My heart dropped to the floor. I felt as though I'd been shot by a rifle. Turning my head was painful, but I looked back the way I came. That path that led all the way through the cemetery, through the city, across the Atlantic, to my room aboard the Titanic. It was such a long way. How could they expect me to walk all that? My legs buckled under me then, and I hit the concrete porch. It felt more like the porch hit me. I lay there on the dry ground and tried to climb to my feet, but it was even harder than it had been on the deck of the Carpathia, getting up from the railing. Now all my clothes were weighed down with water, and the last of the chemical strength had fled. Now the toll was due. I had borrowed energy, and now I must pay it back threefold. I tried to raise my arm, but I couldn't. I tried to keep my eyes open. At last, I did the only thing I still could, and I wept. "Take this burden," I prayed. "Just kill me." I wept harder. Then I was too tired to even weep. Then darkness. I awoke aboard the Titanic. And I think that's officially the worst situation I've ever put a main character into. So he is trapped on the Titanic in room D67, and he will try all sorts of things to escape. But with this scene, he has realized that the answer is not outward. Now he's got to turn inward. He has to explore the Titanic. He has to figure out why he's here aboard this ship, coming back and back and back again. And over the next couple hundred pages, we figure that out. And that was Titanic Again. I'll be having some more Titanic videos because I've learned so much about this ship in my research, and I'm really excited to bring this novel to light. So that is Titanic Again, Groundhog Day on Titanic. Thank you for listening.